Okay, so we'll do a little bit of review as far as the things that have been interwoven throughout the whole retreat, as far as our kind of big main themes that we're focused on in our time here together. So Thursday days, well, first we focused on rest, and really that continues throughout. And it's not the kind of rest where you're just like totally passive, binge watching a limited series, although that is very fun and a good kind of rest also, to really turn things down and to shut off for a little while. That's a kind of rest, but the kind of rest that we're doing has an active quality to it. When we did our initial rest practices, there wasn't just a drifting into nothingness of total passivity. There was an attention held and a focus on breath and a rejuvenating quality to the rest. And that's sort of throughout the time together, to the focus to put rest and your needs and taking good care at the top of the list for a period of time, to rejuvenate and overcome things like burnout and overwhelm, which are signs that there's just too much to process and we need some space. And so that space we're learning about through the lens of the elements, but we also intuit that sort of thing whenever things are getting overwhelmed, to isolate ourselves to get space. But then we're also doing a bit of a different approach by resting together in community, which has its own rejuvenative and replenishing effects, because there can be an ease in togetherness where you're also able to attend yourself and be in your own inner world as you need to, and go to your room and rest as you need to, and all of those things are very welcome here and encouraged. But then there's also an ease, if you want to go find some people and socialize and just have some nice FaceTime, we'll call it, and pleasant company. And so that adds to the restful quality of retreating. And then secondly, we focused on ritual. And we did that through lifestyle rituals a little bit, talking about how you could make yourself a tea ritual or chai ritual in our case of some sort, where you're really immersing your senses in the present moment and in experiencing something really deeply, and sort of making time where that's the only thing you're doing. And that's really a vital part of ritual, is that we're stepping away from all of the many muches, all of the everything, all of the time that's happening, and we're making time to just do this one thing that is really maybe even mundane in a way, but we're bringing our senses forward. And as we bring our senses forward, we're working with the elements. We're bringing our elemental nature forward also. So whichever sense you're focusing on, you now have a correlated relationship to an element with that. And then through our posture practice, or our time on our mat, or our focused practice time, we made that into a ritual of the elements also. So an understanding of these different activations and containments and their associated area in your physical body, as well as your multi-layered self having 5 different bodies. So not only are you a physical body, and not only do you have an energetic body or emotions, and not only do you have a mind, which is kind of only now getting on our radar as far as like, oh, like if my mind's not okay, I'm not okay, right? As mental health gets more and more comes more and more to the front of our culture as something that needs to be addressed. But that you also have an intuitive body and a relational body. And we did a specific practice to really work with that area of the body, the thoracic rotation and the neck mobility, and their correlations to those intuitive bodies and relational bodies. So that lets us know that if there is an inner knowing that we're denying, or a broken relationship with your intuition, that's going to have effects on your other bodies, on your mental body and your emotional body and your physical body. So these layers are interwoven in you, and rather than thinking about them like layers from like the most gross to the most subtle, which they are from earth to space, thinking about them like oils in a barrel that are all mixed together, all present all the time within each of us. So really intermixed and always present, all of them. And so today we'll add on these techniques that are associated with the elements. So inside of Hatha Yoga, there are particular techniques. And I've written down here the Sanskrit name also. So if you're familiar with those, you can correlate that to what you know about the 8 limbs of yoga or the practices of Hatha Yoga. But these particular techniques are what we're layering and interweaving together within one particular posture practice or one particular practice session on your mat to create this blend of the elements and to embody the elements in practice for a focused period of time. And then we also took that out to the trails, and thought about how could I employ these containments and these techniques as I go through life. So the same thing will be true here. We'll learn a little bit more specifically the techniques and the associated elements, and you'll use them in practice, but then you can also think about them in your daily life or in moments that you have for practice. Say you have 5 or 10 minutes to practice. What would be a good thing that you could do, something you could take action on that would support balancing your elements at any given moment? So in practice, we will focus today on rhythm, but our focus from yesterday on the fire element and containment and learning those bandhas comes with us today. So we'll be building on top of that so that now you know how to activate and contain your activations in a certain way. And then now we'll challenge that through moving your limbs in different ways and connecting your movements to breath in a very deep and intentional way. So in certain places, I'll be directing your movements and your breath pretty precisely and exactly, but your job is to feel sensitively and honestly at what point do you lose your containments? What point how far is too far before something's got to give to compensate so that you can get the outer form to make the movement that you want, and sacrificing the inner form unintentionally, but the results and the consequences are the same nonetheless. So we're really looking to move in a way where we're feeling sensitively the edge of capacity and then moving off of that and moving again to the edge of capacity and then moving off of that. So through this embodied practice, you're learning to feel for where your edge is. How far is too far? How far before you lose your breath? How far before you lose your center and move into compensation? And learning to honor that place and gently return back to center, and then test it again. And so in this way, your body is feeling that place where how far is too far. And then this translates into your daily life so that when you feel yourself overextended, possibly, trying whatever you can to figure out these problems, and really, coming away from yourself, you can say, oh, wow, what is this that I'm up to? And return to center and move from that place that's taking into account your whole self. So by moving in day-to-day life in alignment in this way, you're learning to balance your instinctual needs, your gut level needs, your body level needs, with your emotional level needs, your heart-centered needs, and your analytical and logical needs. So everything is coming together so that your actions take into account all of those things, and you're moving in alignment with yourself, both literally and figuratively. So that's sort of the strange marketing ploy for a time of focused posture practice where you're expanding your capacity. So yesterday we really focused on Langana techniques, or letting go, releasing, emphasis on exhale, emphasis on receptivity. And today we'll employ Brahmana, or this adding to, this tonification. And we'll do that through the way that we breathe. So our breath pattern, that high to low breath instead of low to high, and our breath ratios. So holding inhales and adding to the intensity of the breath practice so that it expands your capacity. So if you were to think about this in relationship to our fire element, and how building a fire is what we're after. We're doing these containments to build this internal fire. And so we'll practice the techniques of rhythm, or associated with water, and breath work to sort of come around on either side of the fire and provide support so that your fire can have all the ingredients that it needs to really burn bright and experience life in a way of thriving. So if we were to think about this quality of adding to, that's when your fire has already had time to get built a little bit, right? So you've got some kindling on it, and maybe the sticks have caught, and then you're going to add some bigger logs, but you're not going to take, all the logs and just dump them on there, because then they wouldn't catch, right? So you've got to only add how much the fire that you have can handle, and then add to in an organized and intentional way, or else you'll squelch your fire again, and then you'll have to start from the beginning and, first of all, clear everything away, letting go, making your space, and creating your little pile of kindling to start over building again. So we're into this process of adding to, with a lot of emphasis on capacity, and learning to listen to your capacity, and learning to feel where that edge is. So when you're going at this alone, you can know when to stop, and know when to push yourself a little bit more, know when to test your edge, and then come back and see what happens and integrate and digest. So that will be a lot of the emphasis of our posture practice today.